For how long have they killed or bought off our researchers, authors, and whistleblowers? When they found out they got, I don't know, too close to the truth, the hidden agenda? For how long have they suppressed with fear, sometimes to their most loyal people, with threats of death or life in prison? What waits in the darkness of space that makes our government be willing to do such things to keep its secrets? They must realize by now that there's those of us like myself and you, I like to call us the black sheep, that are relentless. We will never stop hunting down the truth, the secret. We will find out sooner or later. We won't stop until the curtain falls, revealing the shadow government and all its pals. If you don't think your government is capable of something like this, let me suggest you Google something called MK Ultra. It's an interesting read. This is something where thousands of citizens were given large amounts of LSD in an attempt at mind control experiments, as well as mental and sexual abuse that was used, as the CIA would later testify to Congress, as a experiment in torture techniques to extract knowledge from our enemies. Later reports of small towns across the country would report sickness and having hallucinations when tested. Their blood would show small trace amounts of LSD. Our own citizens. Now that's just one example. Look up strange deaths in the ufology community. For years, authors and researchers that have got too close to facts on UAPs or UFOs, I like to call them, old school, would have countless sudden heart attacks, or they would commit suicide with a gunshot wound, usually to the back of the head. But anyway, that's for another episode. I just wanted to show you that there exists a power in the country, in the world, that knows how to keep secrets. And they also know how to suppress those who find out about what they're keeping with extreme prejudice. Perhaps since our government won't tell us the truth, we must go back to the start, the origins of space and time. The space program, our great race to the stars to find what we went into the program, or maybe what inspired our mission into the cosmos. I always thought it was strange that our astronauts were sworn to secrecy, not about technology used, but anything and everything witnessed during the missions, the Apollo missions. In recent years, I've seen, at least in my country, an almost pride from some groups within our leadership in their ability to suppress truth and to downright remove history. The hate of our history and the rush to restructure it, something we're supposed to learn from, I don't know, man, should make sane people ask the question, why? Maybe it's because some don't want the truth to be told about certain historical facts. Why, you ask? Perhaps it's because some of the historical origins that have led us today might just point to some of what they are trying to hide from us. In God we trust. Sound familiar? Should. It's printed on our money and on the walls of our state houses and courtrooms all around. Other cryptic symbols and all-seeing eyes, the pyramid, cobwebs, spiders, all kinds of stuff on our dollar bills and all around the country. But let's stick with God. In the Bible, which our nation was founded on, right? It clearly states, no gods before me. So why did America have a goddess? Huh? Did you know about this? Until about the time of World War I, every country on the globe at one time has had a god or goddess. This was, of course, taken from the Greeks and used by the Romans. It seems every place the Romans would conquer quickly was given a god or a goddess symbol, such as Britain had Britannia, other countries had Germania, sound familiar, and Marianne in France, and in America we had we created the Columbia. That sounds familiar, huh? An American goddess. You can still see remnants of her today in Columbia pictures with the lady holding the torch. And of course, our nation's capital is in the District of Columbia. The American goddess first appeared around, 1730s in Gentleman's Magazine. She would later be joined by Uncle Sam, then replaced by the Statue of Liberty. You gotta ask yourself, even though we're told Columbia was for liberty and justice and good things, still, she was referred to as a goddess. If America was founded on strong Christian values, then surely our founders didn't forget that part in the Bible about, no false gods before me, right? Perhaps a simple symbol of good, or maybe another age-old strategy at mind manipulation. Everybody's sworn to secrecy. Not about technology used or anything like that, but anything witnessed during the missions to space. In recent years, I've seen, at least in my country, an almost pride from some groups within our government and leadership positions in their ability to suppress truth and to downright remove our history. The hate of our history and the rush to restructure it, something we're supposed to be learning from, should make a sane person ask the question, why? Maybe it's because some don't want the truth to be known about certain historical facts. Why, you ask? Perhaps it's because some of the historical origins that have led us today might just point to some of what they are trying so hard to hide from us. In God we trust. Sound familiar? It should. It's printed on our money along with other cryptic symbols. The all-seeing eye, the pyramid, cobwebs, and spiders, and on and on. But let's stick with God in the Bible, which our nation was founded on. It clearly states, no false gods before me. So why did America have a goddess? Did you know about this? Until about the time of World War I. Every country on the globe at one time has had a god or a goddess. This was, of course, taken from the Greeks and used by the Romans. It seems that every place the Romans would conquer quickly was given a god or goddess symbol, such as Britain had Britannia, other countries had Germania, and Marianne in France. And in America, we created Columbia. an American goddess. You can still see remnants of her today in Columbia pictures with the lady holding the torch. And of course, our nation's capital, where's that at? The District of Columbia. History's fun, huh? She would later be joined by Uncle Sam, then replaced by the Statue of Liberty. You got to ask yourself, even though we're told Columbia was for liberty and justice and good things, still, she was referred to as a goddess. If America was founded on strong Christian values, then surely our founders didn't forget that part in the good book about the gods before me not having any, right? Perhaps a simple symbol of good, maybe another age-old strategy at mind manipulation, brainwashing. Statues of Columbia can still be found in our nation's capital today. It would seem, as a people, we have always had to have something to pray to, something to symbolize, something to lead us. Maybe it's in the human DNA to do these things. Since some believe aliens created and taught us the skills to grow into what we've become. Maybe when the Anunnaki jumped in their ships and took off and left us without guidance. So kind of like a security blanket, we turned to statues and symbols to look to for our guidance. I bet at this point you're saying, hey, Shano, I thought we're going to talk about sex magic, the occult, and NASA. You're right, but I felt I had to give some background surrounding the space program as a whole. And to me, that includes the mystery of what's out there. And what are they hiding? So once again, maybe the answer is hidden in plain sight, buried deep into our history. As a people, one, if not the greatest of achievements, was our, quote, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind mission into the darkness of space. But the story I'm about to tell you, it won't be found in your history books. Politicians won't bring it up when progress is made in our exploration of the cosmos, and NASA will never mention it. But that's my job.
We're going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west.
Stop this. A UFO.
In the 1930s, the military would approach the famed Caltech with a bundle of money and a very real interest in rocketry, which at the time was as taboo as researching magic carpets. But money talks, and eventually a team would be chosen to start the journey of building the tools to take us to the stars. Eventually. Our story starts with a young man named Jack Parsons. Born in 1914 as Marvel Parsons, his parents divorced after Jack's father was caught by his mom visiting several prostitutes in the area. At some point, Jack was sent to live with his very wealthy grandparents, who lived in a mansion in Pasadena, California. The spot where he lived was known as Millionaire's Row, and he was given every luxury as a child, since Jack was a huge comic book lover, and even as a child loved playing with chemicals to make small fireworks. His grandparents made him a small lab. One day when Jack got dropped off at school in his private car, a bunch of kids jumped him, poor guy. A young kid named Ed Foreman came to the rescue and fought the boys off. From that time on, Jack and Ed were best of friends. Both boys were huge Amazing Stories comic book fans. They started removing the chemicals from fireworks and making small bombs. They basically blew up their grandparents' backyard, or Jack's grandparents' backyard. As the boys became teenagers, neither would end up at Caltech. So they made friends with others who went there. Jack ended up dropping out of Pasadena Community College and Stanford due to financial troubles during the Depression. Parsons would eventually find work at the Hercules Powder Company, which gave him access to explosives, just what he wanted. He would work nights with his friends at Caltech. And as they tried to create a solid rocket fuel that could do the job of one day taking us to the stars, after many attempts and several fiascos, eventually the explosions became too big and dangerous for Caltech campus. So they had to be moved to the floodplains of El Rora Seco. I think I said that right. To this day, the reason Jet Propulsion Laboratories name exists is because Caltech at the time considered rocketry to be so taboo, they wouldn't allow it to have the word rocketry in the name. During World War II, Jack and other co-founders of Aerojet Engineering, another company Jack started, who knew they could put rocket engines on planes to allow the aircraft to have lift and go skyward quickly, allowing planes to take off from shorter runways like aircraft carriers. They finally got the military contract, and things went big time, baby. In 1944, the company was worth $50,000. Today it would be $2.3 million. That's a lot of cash, a lot of cheese, man. Jack and his colleagues during the war were making huge amounts of money, hand over fist. Jack took his money and he bankrolled his obsession with something called Thelema. I had never heard of it until I started researching this. Let me explain. Thelema was a new occult movement founded by famed occultist, you'll know this name, Aleister Crowley. Parsons had been interested in the occult and the metaphysical since high school. And supposedly one night, while he was young, he did an invocation and summoned forth a demon. The appearance of the demon scared Jack so bad that he stopped doing any kind of occult work because he thought, quote, he had become too powerful, end quote. Thelema incorporates ancient Egyptian deities, sex rituals, and Eastern and Western mysticism. Jack's first wife had left him, but her niece was more of a free love type, and Jack and her would hook up and enjoy orgies, large orgies, and the sexual magic power they received from Thelema, the group. At least to the government and his colleagues, he had become a liability. So eventually his work would be swept under the carpet and swept from the history books. In 1944, Jack Parsons was booted from the JPL and persuaded to sell stock, his stock. 30 years. And now unemployed, he uses what stock cash he has left and buys a small house at 1003 Orange Grove Avenue in Pasadena, California. He turns this place into an occultist paradise. I mean, we're talking Jack's house was filled with the outcast, the strange, and those who existed only in the shadows. There was a man named, you'll know this one, L. Ron Hubbard. He would eventually meet Jack, and Parsons fell in love. A friendship began. Jack would write his personal friend Crowley, telling him that Hubbard knew so much about magic. He had to be communicating with otherworldly beings. Jack and Hubbard, both obsessed with Thelema, would embark on a journey they called Operation Babylon. This project was a series of rituals and experiments intended to manifest the goddess of Babylon in earthly form. The plan was for Parsons and Hubbard. They were going to impregnate this earthly goddess by immaculate conception to bring forth the magical child, or what would become known as the Antichrist. Parsons received visions of a rare red-haired lady riding a great beast. L. Ron Hubbard and Parsons, they would disappear deep into the desert surrounding Pasadena for 3 to 4 days. Parsons returned believing he was destined to be with the goddess, to bring forth the Antichrist. The experiments ended up getting too freaky for even Aleister Crowley, who said, quote, he felt fairly frantic when they contemplate the idiocy of these louts, end quote. Eventually, L. Ron, which always shows his true colors in the end, he took off with 10 grand of Parsons' money, and he skipped town with Jack's lover, Sarah. With the cash in hand and a new sex buddy, L. Ron Hubbard would buy a couple yachts and founded Dianetics and Scientology, with Sarah right alongside of him. The money came in. Jack, some say, went wild. He would perform these sexually charged rituals with several prostitutes. He was intent on crossing the abyss. That is something that's achieving universal consciousness in Thelema. Crossing the abyss. After losing his security clearances and being shunned by the rocketry community and his colleagues, he resorted to solid rocket fuel experiments in his basement or garage. Parsons did remarry to a woman named Marjorie Cameron. They seemed to both share a passion for the strange life that Parsons lived. In 1952, things seemed to start happening again for old Jack. He started working, but this time it was for the Mexican government. The government wanted to use Jack's knowledge to establish an explosives factory for their country. I'm sure the United States wasn't happy about that. On the side, Jack also did explosions work for production companies in Hollywood for extra money. On June 17th, while in his garage filling a rush order for film explosives, a fatal explosion would happen and blow out half the building Jack was in. Parsons' life would end 37 minutes after that explosion. This happened one day before he and Cameron were to move to Mexico. Jack Parsons' final words, as reported by the officers present, quote, I wasn't finished, end quote. So that's the story, the short version, of one of history's mystery men that built the foundation, helped build the foundation for what is now known as NASA, our space program. But you won't hear about him in the history books. Our children won't learn of his knowledge or accomplishments or his inspiration for what is now NASA. You know, it makes me wonder if our government hides things like this from us. What else throughout history do you think they've hid from us? I mean, who's to say what is right and wrong, right? Everybody loves sex. Everybody loves to have a good time. The guy was freaky, yeah. Satan, kind of weird. But me being the judge, no. But as the topic of aliens and UFOs and UAPs get more and more attention and more congressional funding, and they have their backdoor skiffs and it's written about seriously now, at least more seriously, in the papers, some of the sheep can't help but start to notice. pay attention. Maybe take our faces out of our phones for a little while and look to the skies. Look up. Look at our surroundings. What do you see? Maybe Jack found a way to transcend this 3D space we put ourselves in, or perhaps someone else puts us in. I don't know what to say. But the question is getting more serious. What are these things of different shapes, sizes, and colors flying through our skies at great speeds? Speeds that appear to defy the laws of known physics. Outflying our fighter pilots and our fastest fighter jets. More importantly, who are the pilots of these craft? What are their intentions? Once again, I say what I've always said. We must know where we've been to find out where we're going. So with tonight's episode, we now find out some of our history when it comes to the founding of NASA and fuels and designs of the crafts that have taken us to the deepest reaches of space so far that we can go. So you have to ask yourself, why the sudden rush in the last few years to erase history? Just like they tried to erase Jack, his name from the history books, which they did, but they couldn't erase it from existence. Perhaps to find the answers, we need only to look back at our past, our history. Did we come from the stars? Are we ourselves alien? And more importantly, the question is, if something was built on, like NASA, as Parsons would credit all his discoveries to Lucifer and the powers in the darkness that he would manifest, I ask you, what are we supposed to think? We try to understand our greatest adventure, our journeys into the dark vastness of space. When our government openly lies to us and hides the secrets, the knowledge, the truth from us year after year and day after day, and we pay for this with our tax dollars. Our elected representatives mostly bought and paid for. Who do we turn to? Ourselves? Our gut instincts? What does your instinct tell you? What is out there? What are they? And what are they hiding from us? It's been whispered in the halls of the Pentagon, like Louis Alexander's new book, Imminent, mentions a new group. For we the people, a new group of enemies of the truth that call themselves the Collins Elite. This group dictates what we the people can see or know based on their own personal religious fanaticism. Lou even states in his book that they told him, quote, "We already know who they are, Lou," end quote, when referencing the pilots of these unknown craft. No mention of what religion they follow. No mention at all about separation of church and state. I always thought that that was something we agreed on, the separation of church and state. Maybe not. Maybe someone has access to these ancient books and the ancient scrolls from thousands of years ago, and they've taken the parts away from our eyes. So like everything else, they can steal from us. Not money or food or land, but knowledge and truth. And truth, my friends, belongs to all of us. Thank you so much for listening tonight to your Shadow Nation podcast. Be sure to follow us on our social media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, or anywhere. especially on YouTube, guys. Please go and subscribe at Shadow Nation Podcast and smash that like and share button to help get the word out about your Shadow Nation podcast. It really does help, guys. Anyway, from the haunted back roads of America, this has been another Shadow Nation podcast episode. Don't go changing America. You know I won't, because I love you. Good night, everybody.